Right. So I think when it comes to innovation, the first thing is to provide an environment where innovation can happen. For Traya, how it worked for us is one, focus on the consumer and not look at what the competitor set is doing. So it's deeply ingrained into our culture where we don't like to see what others is doing and just listen to your consumer. Followed by a culture to really question things. Why is a certain thing done in a certain way, and is there a different way of doing it? Followed by a lot of experimentation and data to really show you the path to what is the right way of doing things. That combined with not having a baggage of coming from the hair care industry really helped us look at this problem from a very fresh lens of efficacy at the center point and not just selling products. Coming down to the hyper-personalization piece, very early on in Traya, we realized that the ambition is not just to personalize a cohort of users, but how can the customer journey for every single consumer be unique? And we realized the only way to do so is to have very good tech and data in-house. So 4 years ago, when we got our first seed funding, we started investing in that. So today at Traya, we sit with the intelligence we have it within in-house, where we know everything that the consumer is doing, from not just their health data, but things like they opened the app and shut it, they uploaded a scalp picture, they spoke to a hair coach, and what was the sentiment of that conversation. They got a WhatsApp message, they read it, but they did not click it. All of this is flowing into our system, and we've built, and now we have data of 10 lakh plus Indians doing all of these 1,000 data points each into our system. We've built something called the consumer score, and we predict the likability of this consumer to move to the next month. This score is the spine of our personalized customer journey, and through experimentation, we've figured what is the best intervention and at what time it needs to come in the customer journey. To give you an example, every time a customer uploads his photograph of his head in our app, and if a coach sends a message within 24 hours of that, it improves the score by 60%, improving retention drastically. So I think the idea is not to make just cohorts and send some personalized messages, but really how do we get to a point where each consumer has a very personalized journey.
Thanks, Ankur. So we started Inito to build everything a consumer would need at home with fertility testing the starting point, right? So whenever we look at, let's say, building something new, we are thinking about the market, and the second part is like, does the technology exist, or how mature is the technology for doing something like that? And the third is regulatory pathway. So today, most of our revenue is US, like you know. So when we are thinking about market, we are thinking about things like how quickly the consumers adopt it. Is there going to be recurring revenue? Because we think it's impossible to build a one-time per sale business. So if you're selling a product that is like $100, $150 in the US, you can never make money. So we think about how frequently consumers will use it. And building a new product for us is such a big exercise that if we don't believe that a product will get to 100 million revenue in the next few years, we actually don't build it. So basically I'm saying we don't take market risk at all. So first we would kind of rank the things we want to build with market, and then just remove things that we don't believe fit that lens. Now the kind of game is between how mature is the tech for certain things and what is the regulatory pathway going to look like. And I'll give you an example. Things like monitoring pregnancy progression is a regulatorily complex problem, but the technology can be, we have more control on the technology today. But things like testosterone, we have figured ways to kind of shortcut the regulatory pathway, and then we are investing more in technology. So we like to take one bet at a time. So market is like the filter. If it doesn't meet the market criteria, we don't attempt to build it. And then we like to take at this stage one complexity at a time. There'll be time where we'll build things like insulin, which are both regulatorily as well as technologically more complex. But I think there'll be a time to it, we'll be a much bigger organization by then. So at this point, that's kind of our process, right? And then once we commit to something, we go to any length in building technology. And another point on regulatory, the right point to take regulatory opinion in our business like us when you are thinking what to build. Because without that, you'll not be able to prioritize what to build, because regulatory is a huge barrier in a company like us. Same thing with supply chain. We don't think that supply chain is a point that you build the product and then scale supply chain. You need to bake those things while building the product, right? Many times your supply chain is problematic because of the design choices you took while building the product, right? So we like to think about these things early on rather than later, because we know that when we build something, it's going to be a multi-year exercise. But once we build it, we expect it to kind of get to 100 million revenue very, very quickly.
At the core of what we're doing at The Good Bug is we're using probiotic science, gut bacterial science to go after inherent problems that exist in India, problems like digestion related issues, so acidity, gas, indigestion, bloating, weight, obesity, and so on and so forth, and really sort of building more deep-rooted solutions for these problems, because the market so far has always been driven around symptomatic treatments, right? So if I have any of these issues, I'll take a symptomatic treatment, I'll solve the problem at that moment in time, but I get stuck in this cycle of continuously dealing with it. So we've spent a lot of time in deep science, a lot of investments on the R&D side to see how we can use gut microbiome science to build deep-rooted solutions to some of these issues, right? So that's what we've been doing, and over the last 2 years, I think we've really saw tangible health outcomes come out, with consumers who are consistently using our products, and that's what sort of made us now go in and invest in full-fledged pharma-grade clinical trials, right? And at the core of innovation now, we use clinical trials to back every single product that we are sort of putting into the market. And these are, randomized, double-blinded, placebo-controlled, multi-center, large number of subject-led trials where we're, partnering with research organizations like IDA, IMA, renowned doctors, who come in as principal investigators on the trial, to really build strong moats around our formulas and continuously see how we can improve efficacy year after year. So at the heart of innovation, sits, this efficacy-led approach for us, which is validated and backed clinically, and that's essentially what we've been sort of working on and focusing on. And, I'm proud to say over the last, year and a half, we've seen very, very promising data come out through our trials, and we're now sort of continuously building on that.
So I think all of us here, have spoken about efficacy being the cornerstone, and I think that holds true not just for healthcare, but for any founder who's starting a brand. But specifically, I think in healthcare, and more so in case of Gynoveda, it's a very outcome-focused solution. So in our case, actually, the bar was set even higher, right? Given the fact that we started the brand with an impact-first philosophy, and the why behind the brand is to make a difference in the lives of people. I mean, that stays throughout the board. But I think given the fact that two challenges. One, we were building a category. Ayurveda for menstrual and reproductive health did not exist. And so the onus was on us to do a lot of education, create awareness, have thought leadership content brought out so that people understand, why Ayurveda. And even though I think, it's going to take us a long time to make Ayurveda as the first choice, but I think the journey has well started. So keeping in mind the outcome focused, I think, we are building for Bharat. And the Bharat audience has two things that they need. One, value for money. And second is, do we take a guarantee that it's going to give results? That's one of the questions that we get asked across the board. And so I think that kind of nudged us to even take a step higher in terms of how do we bring the products together. And if you look at the landscape of fertility, there are multiple reasons which cause infertility, right? There is PCOS, endometriosis, fibroids, low AMH, tubal blockage. There's something called as unexplained infertility, multiple factors. So how do we provide for these micro segments, keeping the authenticity of Ayurveda intact? And that's where our age-old scripture of Charak Samhita and Saloni will agree with me that there are some fabulous methods and herbs mentioned in there. So we kept the authenticity intact. We just modernized the entire processing methodology and made sure that we give authentic, affordable Ayurveda to women for menstrual health and to couples for infertility.